Hey everyone, I am Nate and welcome back to Hype Up. It's now time for another top 10 list. In today's video, we are going to be having a look at the top 10 myths about Australia. In at number 10 is that Australians ride to school on kangaroos. It would be pretty rude to actually ride a kangaroo. In fact, you'd have to be hopping mad to believe that this myth is actually true. Perhaps it is the abundance of kangaroos in Australia that lead to this widespread myth. Kangaroos are so widespread in Australia that they actually outnumber humans in population. In 2017, data showed that Australia's kangaroo population was close to hitting 50 million. While it's doubtful you'll catch the locals riding kangaroos to school on your next visit to Australia, you're very likely to see these bouncing boys in the wild. In at number 9 is that Sydney is the capital of Australia. It isn't. Many non-Australians make the mistake of thinking that Sydney is Australia's capital city and forgetting the small, tucked away town trying to be a city of Canberra. And to be fair, Australians kind of forget about Canberra too, so don't feel bad. With its most memorable feature being one giant roundabout and being conveniently located in the middle of nowhere, it's easy to forget that this is the city that hosts Parliament House. Boasting a thriving population of 390,000, accounting for about 1.64% of Australia's population, Canberra is like the ugly love child of Sydney and Melbourne that everyone wants to forget, both to non-Australians and Australians alike. In at number 8 is that all Australians descended from convicts. While it is true that Britain condemned more than 160,000 convicts to Australia between 1788 and 1868, it is unreasonable to think that most of Australia's population today would be descendants of these convicts. In fact, today Australia is an incredibly multicultural country with an especially large European and Asian population. In 2018, 29% of Australia's population was born overseas, a higher proportion than any other nation on Earth. Australia's population also includes over 100 religions and 300 ethnic groups. Furthermore, every single country from around the world was represented in Australia's population in 2018. In at number 7 is that everyone lives in the Australian outback. It's dead, it's arid, no one can live there. This myth about Australians' population was probably perpetuated by the Crocodile Dundee films, leading to this wild idea that most Aussies live in the outback. The myth would lead you to believe that fighting the scorching heat of the desert as well as crocodiles every other day is a normal day in the life of the average Australian. In reality, over 70% of Australia's population live in major cities. That's over 2/3 of the population. Not to mention that about 20% of Australia's population lives in the city of Sydney alone. In fact, most Australians have probably never ever seen a crocodile in real life. Sorry to say it, but this myth is a load of crock. In at number 6 is, I don't need to explain it, shrimp on a Barbie. The popular Australian myth became widespread after the 1984 tourism campaign featuring Paul Hogan. The ad closes with the iconic line delivered by Hogan, "I'll slip an extra shrimp on the Barbie for you. Hold on to your shrimp because I'm about to grill you on the inaccuracies of this myth." The most glaring issue with this ad campaign, and one that Aussies would cringe over for years to come whenever the phrase was uttered by someone outside of Australia, is the fact that Aussies don't even use the word shrimp. In Australia, they're called prawns. If I had $1 for every time an Australian actually used the word shrimp, I'd have no money at all. In at number 5 is that it's always summer here. For some reason, there is a myth that it's always summer in Australia. While it does reach scorching temperatures in the summer across the country, the highest ever recorded being 50.7 degrees Celsius or 123.3 degrees Fahrenheit, certain parts of the country also face pretty extreme cold temperatures during the winter. Melbourne, in the southern part of Australia, averages a daily high of only 14 degrees Celsius during winter, which is about the same as a November day in London. Not to mention there are parts of Australia that are blanketed in snow throughout the winter months. Australia actually features a wide variety of climates, from deserts and grasslands to snowy mountains to tropical rainforests. This is all due to the country's large geographical size, which leads us into our next myth. In at number 4 is that People believe Australia to be a small country. It isn't. Leading on from the last myth, there's also a myth that Australia is a small country, which is a pretty small-minded if you think about it. Because Australia is an island country with no land borders, it's hard to picture just how big the country actually is. Covering almost 8 million square kilometers, Australia is actually the 6th largest country on Earth, after Russia, Canada, China, the USA, and Brazil. In fact, if you place a scale picture of Australia over the USA, the difference in size doesn't look much at all. Oh, and Australia is the world's largest island too. In at number 3 is that toilets flush backwards. If The Simpsons taught us anything about Australia, it's that we call money dollary-doos, and that toilets flush backwards. Thanks to the popular episode of the show Bart vs. Australia, many people think that toilets flush clockwise in Australia as opposed to anti-clockwise in the Northern Hemisphere. While there is some science behind the origin of the myth, being its link to the Coriolis effect, the myth is mostly a load of, well, you get the picture. The Coriolis effect is where flow patterns are affected by the Earth's rotation, which explains natural phenomena like hurricanes. A toilet flush is way too small to be affected by the Coriolis effect though, and the direction of the spiral of water is usually a result of simple things like the toilet design, plumbing, and the water pressure. In at number 2 is drop bears. Dropping in at number 2, I'm about to finally let you in on the truth about one of Australia's most elusive and fearsome creatures, the drop bear. They are 100% real. That's it. Don't come to Australia. You'll be killed by a drop bear. Okay, but for real now, drop bears are actually a hoax. The story goes that drop bears are an arboreal predatory marsupial related to the koala that drops in on its prey, that being people. The animal is often used in stories to scare tourists. There are some suggested folk remedies that are said to act as a repellent to drop bears. These include having forks in your hair or Vegemite or toothpaste spread behind the ears. In at number 1 for one of the myths that people believe about Australia is that everything is trying to kill you. If you're dying to take a vacation to Australia, the thought that the wildlife wants to kill you has probably made you reconsider. Australia has gained a reputation for being home to the world's deadliest animals, and this is partly true due to the resident saltwater crocodiles, sharks, spiders, snakes, and the blue-ringed octopus. It's not hard to see why this claim has been blown out of proportion. In reality though, it's unlikely that you'll actually cross paths with many of these dangerous animals, let alone be killed by one of them. There have been no confirmed spider bite deaths in Australia since 1979, and on average, only 1.5 people die from a shark attack each year. In fact, you're more likely to be attacked by a shark in the US than you are in Australia. Surprisingly, the most animal-related deaths that occur in Australia are from riding horses and other transport animals. Did you enjoy the video? If you did, make sure you like, subscribe, and check out these other videos over here. I'm Nate, this is Hype Hub, and we'll see you all next time.